but marry the virtuous one who is devoted, who respects Lord, his creator or her creator more than anyone. Because Allah the Almighty have more rights than the right of anyone. So she or he will surely be devoted to his spouse, and she will never commit something that is illegal, that is unlawful for her. So I try to illustrate in brief that the meaning and the translation and the commentary of that verse, Surah Nisa chapter 4 verse 34, is illustrated by the Prophet ﷺ. And I try to highlight some of more issues which is linked with that subject. Regarding the second part of the questions, though I didn't try to have the real questions, what is the questions for? If I would try to request the brothers and sisters, if you have more papers, you try to write the same questions illustratively. If you feel shy or if you feel that you can speak, just try to take the mic and you can ask. If you can explain, I will try.
I have difficulty understanding it.
So you can take the papers, you can ask questions, or you can discuss later on, or if you wanted to take the mic and can ask the question again. But if you try to read it again, I try to.
We'll try to read it again. Okay, the says number 1, so it says number 2 here. I was holding my thumb over it. See. Number 2. Wama malakat aymanukum. It has always been a discussion of that kind of marriage. My poor Arabic, I hope you understood what I meant. That kind of marriage. And that Islam has not dared to liberate the women who were slaves and cannot say against them when they are slaves. And that they could not have their liberty back by becoming Muslim.
I try to understand the questions, though it's unclear. But there are verses in the Quran which says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Nur chapter 24 verse 33, and in other verses, Surah Nisa chapter 4 verse 19, 20, 30, 31, 33, 34, about that we are allowed to marry the slave women. It's not that slavery is encouraged in Islam. Slavery is always being discouraged in Islam. Under certain circumstances, because slavery is abolished in the present world today, if that things will happen, then this can be permissible. It is permissible. In that society, women were traded as a slave. They were captured in many ways, or they are being imprisoned and being traded as a slave to the other tribes. So the person, this slavery was very common in the Arab tribes and many parts of the world. Many parts, even Greek, Rome, Egyptian civilizations, this slavery was there. So especially that they slaved the women. So the Quran says, always is emphasized that you freed a slave. You freed a slave for compensation. If you break the oath, if you break certain commitments, you try to free the slave, and then other procedures. The hadith of Prophet Muhammad is always encouraged that you must try to free a slave. So the slavery system was there. Couple of group or one woman, she has been traded as a slave. So the person who bought her from the other person as a slave, Islam gives him the permission to marry. And the Quran clearly says that it is unlawful for you to force them in prostitution, to take them as a girlfriend, and to hurt them or to inherit them. The verse is clear. You are allowed to marry them as long as they wish to. There are dozens of women that a man can buy. It's not the present society, it was there. But if the same system will happen again, it is permissible. If there are certain women, Islam says if you have money and wealth, you make the other person, the male or female, free. But among the slaves, they are the slave, you can marry whomever your right hand poses, your right hand chooses. Not against their will, because we cannot deny the other verse. If she wants, yes, because in Islam, marriage is compulsory. The person who bought her from an oppressor, he is a good man. Allah says, your intention is there always. Why you are marrying? For the beauty, can be, but if for other reasons, it is also permissible. So when you buy someone, you already give the meher in that circumstances, and you can ask her that if you prefer, I can give you the honor as a wife, or I can access you illegally. And if she is agree, it is that case permissible. But in other aspect, I try to see in the question, there might be some other reasons about the muta or the temporary marriage. That is forbidden in Islam. Though the question, I didn't ask maybe the same questions, but the temporary marriage which we know about the muta is not permissible in Islam. Many people have a misconception. Maybe the Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, he has implemented this Sharia. But during the 7th year of Hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad, during the Battle of Tabuk, the Prophet, peace be upon him, have clearly mentioned that this muta, temporary marriage, was practiced among the people. So the Prophet forbidden that temporary marriage. Many society today, the Muslim society, they practice it. But this is absolutely wrong practice, and this is nothing but a legal prostitution. You marry a woman for one night, giving her some meher, you say this is marriage, and then you left her in the next day. This planning is nothing but the evil innovation in Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ have clearly mentioned on the Battle of Tabuk, and the companion were there, one of them were Hazrat Umar, and later on when the collector of the hadith, Sayyid Bukhari, he was there, then this transmission was there. So the hadith and the Quranic verses should be analyzed as a whole. And I don't know what other aspects mentioned in this question regarding the slavery, Islam.
I think it was just about the person who wrote this thought that if you take a woman who is your slave and marry her, then she won't be able to say no because she's your slave.
No, this is very clear in the Quranic statements. Surah Nur chapter 24 verse 32, 33 gives the answers. Not you are allowed to force them. And the verse, Surah Nisa chapter 4 verse 19, very clear. Not allowed to inherit women against their will. Either be a slave or a free woman. Slavery, a Muslim man cannot have a slave. The Prophet ﷺ, his first adopted son, he was a slave. He tried to have him as an adopted son and then you free him. Because that is always encouraged in Islam. Allah says, free the slave. Because the slave were being oppressed by the others. A woman is oppressed by the others. Even the present society, they are being oppressed. We have to agree. But if we know the certain woman, if she wants virtue, then you freed her. And then if she wants to marry you in a lawful manner, it is permissible to access her, to give her due rights, due meher, and due in a lawful contract, nikah, and then with a witness, you are allowed to have to access her, not against her will. I hope that I try to answer the question.
I'd just like to make a comment on the first question about the beating. When we read the Quran, or rather the translation of the Quran, we have to be very much aware of the fact that these are translations made by someone who is not infallible. And also some of these translations nowadays are becoming a little bit dated. I think the use of Ali one is almost 100 years old. And 100 years ago, English was a very poetic language. And he used things and ways of saying that you don't do today. For instance, the use of the word qital means warfare. And the Quran says that in certain cases war is better than being oppressed. And some of these translators, they translate this into slaughter is better than oppression, some things like that. Because in those days, people used war and slaughter almost like synonyms. But today, when we say slaughter, we think of someone just throwing an atom bomb on someone who is completely innocent or something like that. So things are changing. That's why we also have to read the commentaries of the Quran and also go to the Sunnah. And if there's something you have questions about, go to those who have knowledge, like Brother Naim here, for instance. So it's very good that you have these questions. So, since there seems to be no one on the microphone.
Yeah, if you allow me, I will just direct question.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you. And Assalamu alaikum. My question is that, and Allah says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, الَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ إِلَّا عَلَى